So, I understand you're also involved with the Impractical Jokers.
Yeah.
Okay. How'd you get involved with them?
I've been touring with them forever. I mean, I started in Orlando, and they started touring. Their show came out in like 2011 or 2012, and then they started touring right around that time. And so I've been, on their road show. I've been with them for over a decade. I've done the television show and their movies and things like that. And they're just great dudes. Like those guys are. They're like my brothers,
Yeah.
So, they were in my wedding, and they're as close to me as anyone.
Did they do anything at the wedding?
No. Well, yeah, they actually did do a bit at my wedding. I think it made the TV show or the live tour, but they during the first dance at my wedding, they had this bit where they put Q in a do-rag for no reason, and then they panned from me doing my first dance, and the bit was that they, at any point throughout like this week, they had to put you in like a headband and a do-rag at any point, even when it made no sense. Okay. And it was so funny, and they put like Sal's grandmother in one. It was like any time it was like drop of a hat. So it's like they did that at my wedding, but it was really funny. The video was like hysterical because it was chopped up amongst all these other like times that they did it. But yeah, so I met them I was the house MC at the Improv in Orlando, and their tour manager saw me at the time and kept my info, and then they had a fallout for support in Boston, which is where I was from, and he had known that, and so this guy couldn't do the show and called me, and I just like blew up there and did it, and then we became fast friends. And a lot about touring is you have to carry yourself on stage, which is most of it, but a huge chunk is the vibe with the camaraderie amongst the talent. You don't tour with someone you don't like. Right. You could, even if you're crushing, you could be the funniest fucking person in the world, but if you're not a good hang, that relationship is going to end very quickly.
Yeah.
So like you have to kind of, touring is essentially like it's like picking a roommate.
Yeah, right.
You know what I mean?
You live together for.
Yeah, I mean, I spend more time with them than I do my wife. So it's like, it's an important relationship, and it's grown and evolved, and now we do. I do comedy festivals with Q, and I tour with Gatto, and we're doing side projects and writing shows and movies, and so it's definitely grown and evolved over time. But I think it just started from just being friends with each other, and that's how their show is. Like famously, I think their show is popular because it reflects on their friendships,
Yeah.
and that's why I think people like it. It kind of makes people think about their own friendship groups, and the show is so approachable and watchable.
Yeah.
That it's become kind of like a phenomenon. It's like,
Sure.
I don't know if there's any other shows in America that have been on for as long as they have, as consistently as they have, 24 hours a day on True TV.
Yeah.
They're kind of the last of that golden era of TV. Like I don't think that there's going to be something like that as ubiquitous. People are going to be as famous, but like not as ubiquitously famous. Like there's kids who go up and are like blown away when those guys walk in a room, and there's 90-year-olds who are blown away. And that's like the spectrum of TV. Where like if you have like a TikTok star, there's people more famous than them. Right. But you have like a TikTok star walk into a room, your grandmother doesn't care.
Right. Yeah. Only the audience.
So it's very interesting, man. They're in a very small class of. I joke with Joe all the time that I think he's like the most famous, approachable person in America. Like he's the only, like if Tom Cruise walks into the airport, like no one's like no one chases him down because he's like too famous. Like Joe Gatto is like, he's like Guy Fieri.
Yeah.
If you saw Guy Fieri from Diners, Drive-Ins, and Dives, like people would be like, Guy, like people would chase him down.
Right. They would want to talk to him.
Yeah. And like Joe is like that. He's like the most famous, approachable person.
Yeah, that is interesting because they are very famous, but they don't. It almost doesn't feel like it because they're just famous for being just like regular guys fucking with each other.
Yeah.
They feel like your friend almost.
Yeah. And almost to a point where it's like people don't. I think it helps them because they are approachable in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
But even to a point where people are like, I had a friend of mine who like knows that I'm in the business or whatever, and they sold out Madison Square Garden, and I did the show with them, and it was like an amazing night. And my buddy came out to the show, and then after the show, he looked at me and he was like, "Are these guys? Are they doing this full time?" I'm like, "Are you serious?" They just sold out Madison Square Garden. Yeah, they're doing it full time. Like they had other gigs, like they were selling sneakers during the day.
Yeah.
But that's how the show kind of comes off, is that they're just like, I think people have this perception, they like put on their iPhones and like start shooting stuff. And that's, I think, helped carry the show. There's a grounded like sense of, anyone could do this. These guys are just like normal guys.
Yeah.
That's helped them
Sure.
be on TV for a long time.
No, that's a huge element of the show.
100%.
So were they stand-ups before they got into doing all that stuff?
No, they were actually improvs. They were improvers. Is that, what do they call
Improvisers?
them? Improvisers. They had an improv troupe called the Tenderloins.
Okay.
And they started, their first show was 25 years ago. It was like 1999.
Yeah.
Their little improv troupe called the Tenderloins, which had other members at one point.
Yeah.
And then they all went off to college and like kind of stopped doing stuff together. Then they came back from college and started working on, they were actually MySpace famous. So like their group,
throwback there.
Their Tenderloins improv group would put out sketches and like written sketches, and they would film that were popular on MySpace. And that led to a couple of like development deals with like, this is another throwback, with like Spike TV and things like that didn't really go anywhere. So like they were working on stuff for almost 15 years before they
landed on Impractical Jokers.
Yeah.
Okay.
And it was never even called, their show that they pitched to the network wasn't Impractical Jokers. It wasn't called that. That's not, the show was called Mission Uncomfortable. And it was renamed Impractical Jokers, but that's not their name. Like they weren't they were the Tenderloins. They still are, you know? So Impractical Jokers is a name that was kind of given to them.
Right, it came later.
Yeah.
Yeah. What's this, I guess, branding type of deal. And I guess another thought I had, again, about them being so approachable and just like regular guys, I think part of that has to do with like they became famous from embarrassing the fuck out of themselves. You know? And it's like facing that kind of real time just rejection and embarrassment among people kind of humbles you in a certain way, you know?
And to each other. I mean, a lot of people don't understand the secret sauce of that show, which is, it was written right into the log line, that the show is a upside down prank show. And it's a prank show that the joke is not on the public. The joke is on them.
Right.
So, and a prank show has never really done that before theirs. Right. And people who even try to mimic jokers on like TikTok or Instagram, they miss the point. The reason why Impractical Jokers works is because the joke is never on the public.
Yeah.
It's always reflected back on them. The embarrassment is always on them. It's not on the public.
Yeah.
So, and I think that's what gives the show its charm, because you see so many prank things online, and like anyone can just go fuck with someone.
Yeah.
And that will get views, but that doesn't, it's not, the reason why the show is successful is it has its own natural laugh track. Like there's all these elements that if you really break it down, it's like they have 4 of them on the show, you know, for most of the seasons, and they're all laughing with you at home. They're their own natural laugh track. That also was never really done before.
Right. Yeah, because the ones laughing are the ones not in field.
Right. And so they're laughing along with you. And it's not canned laughter. It's not studio laughter. So you're laughing along with these guys who you like. I think that's a huge element. And then, you know, anything that they do is embarrassing to them, but they never really try to embarrass the public. That was always a core part of the show.
Yeah. They themselves are the butt of the joke.
Right.
Every time.
And I think that really is part of that secret sauce, where like I don't think that these kids who are trying to do Joker's-esque stuff online get that.
Yeah.
And like anyone can go into a Home Depot and like make someone feel bad.
Yeah.
No, anyone can like throw a bucket on someone's head in a Home Depot. That's like, it will get views, but there's nothing to do long term with that because it lacks the charm.
Yeah.
You know? So I think that's kind of like the secret sauce of their show. And yeah, it's been great working with them. They're incredible guys. Like they're just nice, good dudes. Like there's not many people in the industry who have that level of success who are as grounded as they are. And they've been so supportive of me and working at my goals and doing things I want to do. But yeah, it's a wild ride that they've had for going on 15 years, you know?
For sure. What do they like as stand-ups? I've never seen them do that.
So Sal does stand-up and Joe does stand-up.
The other two don't.
Murr does he has like a multimedia show called Murr Live. I toured with him for a while doing that. It was a 2-man show, him and I. But he's more like leans into more improv and storytelling. And we do a bit for Murr Live when we tour with that called Jokers Live, where he would put an earpiece in me. And on a video wall in the club, you'd have someone videotaping me in live, and I'm doing Impractical Jokers live. So he'd be like, all right, go up to that guy and tell him to, take that guy's hat and tell him that you need the hat, or whatever it may be.
So you'd be,
and the crowd is watching live. Yeah, I'd be in like a restaurant next door, and then we're doing Jokers live, and the comedy club is just going. They're like losing their minds because like they're watching their favorite show live with Murr in the room.
They're part of it. They're
taking suggestions. James is taking suggestions, and that I've done a lot of things in comedy, stand up, whatever. There's nothing that like people are losing it. When you land something on Jokers Live, because people are there because they're fans of the show and they're getting to see it. I mean, the place is like melting. It's like the energy is insane. It's insane. So he doesn't really do stand up. Q doesn't tour at all. Sal does stand up and Joe does stand up. And Sal and Joe are very different. Joe is more of a traditional like storyteller, you know what I mean? And Sal is more of a comedy nerd. He's more of like a stand-up. He'll go watch sets in the back of the room. He does sets in the city. Like he's a stand-up guy,
Got it.
Joe is a storyteller, and so it's very different. And the shows are very different. All their live type stuff is very different, but yeah, I think if you went to a Sal show, you'd think you're watching like a touring stand-up comedian, and when you watch Joe, it's like you feel like you're watching your friend tell you stories, and like both work.
Yeah,
and they're just very, very different.
P Boiz #1.
Very cool.
Kind of the #1 Let's Share Comedy podcast. No big deal.